Welcome once again to Coming Out with Gabriel Páez. Today we have my good friend, Miami Beach Commissioner Laura Dominguez. Laura, good afternoon. Welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Hi, Gabriel. Thank you so much for the invitation to have me here.
My pleasure. It's always a pleasure to see you. For those that don't really know you, introduce yourselves, give a brief bio about you. We're just short, sweet, and to the point.
Sure. So I'm Laura Dominguez, and I was born in Miami-Dade County, and I'm definitely a 305 girl. I went to Miami-Dade College. After that, I went to the University of Miami. And even though I spent the bulk of my career working in the travel industry, traveling to beautiful places all over the world, I love calling Miami Beach home. Before the beach, I lived in the Grove and different parts of Miami, but I really love South Florida, and I'm very fortunate to be here. I became a city commissioner in December of 2022. My late partner was Mark Samulin, and he was serving his second term in office when he sadly passed away unexpectedly. And when I started to see the people that were interested in running for his seat, I felt it in my heart that he wouldn't like that. I had to do this. And with the support of the community, I went out and was able to win. I came in first in the first round. And then by December for the runoff, I won with almost 62% of the vote. And that began my political career. I was doing a term in progress. So this year I can run for re-election, and I did file my paperwork to do so. But I love community service. Before that, I served on neighborhood associations. I helped Mark very closely in his role as commissioner. And I love Miami Beach, and I feel that it's a beautiful, fabulous place, and there's always room for improvement, and I want to be there to help.
Awesome. When I first met Mark, I thought that Mark was really great. But then when I met Laura, I thought, oh my God, what a great couple. And that's what really connected me to the both of you. And you were very heavily involved with his campaigns. We worked together, and I saw your energy there. That's why I supported you in the first round when you decided to follow up and be his predecessor. And now you're running again, and congratulations. And, hopefully you'll come around and get reelected and finish off your projects. What type of project are you spearheading right now that you want to see to fruition?
That is a very interesting question. So the reason I ran was to continue Mark's legacy and make sure that the projects that he was focused on made it over the finish line. And I've been in office 2 years and a few months. And in government, things take time, and you really need to champion them if you want to get them across the finish line. These past 2 years, I've had a lot of change on the commission. So, for example, when I won, Mayor Gelber and Commissioner Richardson and Areola were part of the crew. Literally 1 year later, it's Mayor Minor and all new commissioners that came in. So getting people to stay focused and on board with and interested in the projects that I want to move forward takes time and relationship building. So some of the projects of interest. Private property adaptation program. That was something that Mark worked on with the Environment and Resiliency Department. And it actually launched 1 month after he passed away. So at least it did get its start. But what's so special about this program is a lot of cities are looking for ways to keep their streets dry. It's all about, okay, let's nominally raise our streets. Let's make sure that fire rescue and police have access to dry roads. But what they don't think about oftentimes is, what about the private property? And that's what Mark was most concerned with. Being a Georgia Tech engineer, he would think we can't be putting private properties at risk and at least not trying to help them. So the private property adaptation program applies to single family homes, to businesses, to multifamily buildings. Anybody can apply for it. And once or twice a year, there's a window that opens up where businesses, residents, multifamily buildings can apply for grants up to $20,000.
Wow.
It's a matching grant. So maybe they're wanting to raise their seawall or putting permeable pavers. There's actually a list about 40 items that are resilient focused that would allow them to apply for this program. We only open it a couple times a year because it does take time to qualify and ensure that somebody meets the guidelines in order to proceed. But we've had over 50 people get approved. And seawalls have become very expensive. And in our city, 95% of the seawalls are private.
Wow,
So
95%.
yes.
Wow.
So us as a city, we've really done our best through geo bonds and capital improvement funding to make sure that we're raising our seawalls to show it as an example. But before COVID, a seawall raising was about $2,000 a linear foot. Now it's double.
Wow.
It could be up to $4,000. So raising a seawall in the back of your house could be a couple $100,000 project. And $20,000 may not sound like a lot, but it's incentivized people to get started and do these major projects in their home. So I'm really proud of that program and glad that it's really taken anchor in our city. Also, the way it's set up is we have a convention center hotel that's currently being built next to our convention center. And one of the funding sources for this program in the future will be the resiliency line item.
Okay.
That will help keep it going without having to use taxpayer dollars or things of that nature. So that's one of the projects that I'm most excited about. Mark was also a walker. He used to love to walk. And one of his favorite roads was Lincoln Road because you had access from the bay to the beach, right by where you live,
Right.
and uninterrupted. The beach walk is done, and then you could also continue south to South Point Park. We were on a trip to Las Vegas, and we kept seeing pedestrian bridges everywhere. And there had been a senior that was, I think she might have been killed, crossing Fifth Street. And there's been many accidents to pedestrians in that area. And he thought, why don't we have a pedestrian bridge? So he sponsored an item as part of Five Park. One of the community benefits was to have that pedestrian bridge built on Fifth Street. And then part of the idea is to then have it connected to the Baywalk.
Okay.
So that's what I'm working on, ensuring that the Baywalk is completed and it's currently under construction. So I'm very excited about that. And then the Baywalk behind West Avenue and Bay Road is also in the process of getting completed. That's been quite the process because some of the buildings own that Baywalk, and it's getting approval from them to have it open from sunrise to sunset to the public.
Okay. I thought that was already had been approved, but it's interesting that it has not been, but that's in the making. One of the things that we're seeing now is overdevelopment in a lot of areas of the beach. One of the ones right now, the hot topic is the Deauville Hotel. How do you feel about that? What's your position on such a thing, or, what can you tell us about that?
Well, there are many layers to that question. I've been a longtime member of MDPL, and I do believe that what makes our city special, the city of Miami Beach, is all of the preserved architecture that we've had, the Art Deco buildings than you can in Miami Beach. And when the Deauville was knocked down about 5 or 6 years ago, I was heartbroken because it's gone and you can't bring it back. And the owners seemed to be bad operators that didn't care. And so it was really upsetting. And that particular area, because I do visit every single corner of Miami Beach as often as I can, it's been severely blighted. So moving forward, I think we need responsible development. We can't say no to development because that's not reasonable, but we do need to have smart development. A few years ago, the voters were proposed something without any input, and it was this big, huge project. And yes, it did have a world-class architect, Frank Gehry, but it wasn't it wasn't the project for our city. So the voters voted it down, and as they should. And then it's been vacant for a number of years. And now a developer partnered with the owners of the Deauville to bring a project. I did vote yes on first reading, and I'm still doing my homework to make sure that I understand everything that's happening. Um, One thing that I liked about it was initially the project was going to be a big boxy building with the height and ratio that they were allowed to build. And the planning department, which does get involved in giving recommendations on aesthetics and things of that nature, said if you do that big boxy building, that it is going to not uh, agree with the aesthetics of Miami Beach. So he recommended separate it into two buildings. In order to do that, he needed height. So the last time I talked to the developer, I told him that the height was too much, that we needed to bring it down. And I think it started at 420, and he is dramatically reducing the height.
That's good to hear because that's where I differ.
Of
The
course.
height is just way too much. So it's good to hear that the height has been reduced. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I believe it might be 350 or 360, but I guess we'll hear more whenever it is that it comes back to the commission. They are doing a replica of the hotel. I know that that's something that some members of the community are like, well, if the hotel's gone, why are they doing it? I think it's important to have them do it because if not, every owner of a historic hotel will just let it go to be an unsafe structure to be knocked down and be like, oh, well, sorry, it was unsafe.
And now with all these,
But if you require them to
preempting
rebuild it,
laws,
maybe they'll think twice about letting it go to just repair and
Right.
just have upkeep. So that's part of the reasoning there. Also, the developer, the last conversation I had with him, he mentioned that because I was concerned about shading,
Mhm.
and our beaches, they need to be sunny and beautiful places. So instead of having the building in the middle or on the east side, it's going to be as close to Collins as possible to avoid
reduce.
that shading. And then there's also different public benefits. Like one thing I'm going to champion is if we're even going to consider moving forward with this project, they have to pay back their fines because the original owners owed the city several million dollars in fines. And I am going to push to have part or all of the monies allocated to help the existing neighborhoods. So when I've been out in the community and talking to residents, what do you think about the Deauville? This is North Beach folks who would be directly affected. What they most worry about is gentrification. And they're like, okay, so this is going to come. What's going to happen then on Carlisle and Abbott and Byron? And what about our buildings? We live in buildings where we have old elevators and they have to be redone in order to meet the certification, and we can afford it. So we could have a fund, similar to the private property adaptation program where there's grant funding to help with resiliency. I want us to look into grant funding to help some of those buildings with recertification projects and things so that they can stay in their buildings, keep their buildings, get them up to standard and code, and not have them be fearful of gentrification.
Most recently, and I want to thank you for being supportive of my candidacy for the design review board. I've been sitting on the design review board these past few months, and I've been learning so much about land use, and how it impacts the neighborhood and impacts nature and how it impacts just everything of our surroundings. So it's really important that, when you look at something, you look at it from so many angles. And that was one of the things that I was at last meeting, seeing it from so many other angles that I was not usually aware of. of these things. And now that I'm on the board, so thank you so much for your support on that candidacy, and because I really appreciate it.
Congratulations, and you're doing a great job. I try to look at the power boards every chance that I get, and you're a natural.
You know what? It kind of it does sit well with me. In the past couple meetings, I've been very quiet. I've just been absorbing and recording, and I only opinion when I really feel strongly about something. And I feels that it really has become kind of natural because I've been very, diligently learning and studying. And let me tell you, when you get these agendas, I mean, they're not so thin, they're kind of thick, and a lot of pieces come into play, so you have to take a lot into consideration. So I know it's not just a building that you're looking at the whole plan. What else are you looking in the future to sponsor, that is important to you?
Um, some of the things that are most important to me are practical things. Like one of the things that I championed earlier this year were BTRs. We have so many people that work from home, and myself included. Um, and our BTRs were more expensive than any other city in Dade County for home-based employees. And it just didn't make sense. So I sponsored an item to redefine home-based jobs and make them more in line with the other cities in the county. So that represented about a 30% reduction in BTR prices that home-based employees and businesses had to pay. Another thing that came up last year was the special magistrate, and I met with the special magistrates. I met with homeowners associations, and we found that there were some loopholes that were happening. So people that were getting violations were using those loopholes and then never having any consequences or completing the tasks that they were supposed to. So we buttoned that up, and it's gotten much better with the special magistrates process. I really care about our stormwater projects. So in 2018, this was before my time, but the city had passed a geo bond, which was over $400 million to tackle a variety of different initiatives. But one of them was part of the stormwater master plan, because underneath our streets, we have pipes that could be 50, 60 years old. And while a lot of them have been hardened and they're supposed to last for another few years, many need to get replaced. And it's just making sure that every year as we do our budgets, that if there's any funding gaps on these projects, that we find the money and make sure that they move forward and that they're not shelved. Because our biggest threat, of course, is a Category 5 hurricane and storm surge. But our annual threat is sea level rise, and that comes on the bay side. It comes from underneath our porous limestone that is our barrier island, and making sure that we have clean, new, modern stormwater underneath our city will really help in our fight with flooding, especially with king tides and rainy day floods, right? Our rainy season officially starts in May, and that's when the city starts deploying temporary pumps. But March 30th or 31st of this year, we had a rain event that brought 7 inches in just a few hours, and there was flooding all over the place, not a pump to be found, because that's never happened in March. So having replaced stormwater drains will help in the future.
One of the things that I recently did was did a beach cleanup, and I did Monument Island, and I just couldn't. First of all, the beauty of Monument Island, the monument itself is just gorgeous, but there was so much trash, and I just couldn't believe. Is there a program that the city is going to implement or looking to implement through Resiliency, or for at least educating the user of the island on how to keep their own trash and take their trash away from when they leave?
So I am currently working with a state commissioner that works with an environmental agency. His name is Spencer Crowley, and he is one that does grants for bay walks and things on the bay side that may help the city. And Mayor Miner and I are co-sponsors of an item to help wrap a part of Monument Island
Mm.
and upgrade for signage and trash and trash bins and things for that area. And when I say wrap, it's bring in natural rocks and things around the islands to only have certain areas open for the public, not for overnight, from sunrise to sunset and things of that nature. But I've been on there. It's so incredibly sad to see the trash that people leave behind.
I couldn't believe the amount of trash we
Like,
picked
how could
up.
they do that?
Right. It's
But
just
yes,
sad.
I do have something that I'm working on with the
Great.
mayor and hope to get. It's been about a year and a half in the making. So, and I'm meeting with uh, Mr. Crowley in a few weeks. So I will bring up to see what the status
One of
is.
those things that I saw on the island was that it lacked a lot of vegetation on certain parts. And I mean, I put it together. I'm like, I grow all these mangroves in the house, and I grow them and I grow them and I, have them in little vases and stuff. And I was thinking that all of a sudden I plant them on planters because I don't want to set them in the ground, anybody's ground, because then you can't cut them. But I have all these mangroves that I can donate to the Monument Island, just and they're pods, the pods that fall, and I pick them up as they come to shore and I put them in water, and my spouse Ray is always like,
I could ask. I forget if it's the Parks Department or Environmental that deals with the spoil islands. I'll double check. But in my building, I live on Belle Isle, and somebody said, I have 25 orchids on my balcony. What can I do with them? And if they're native to Florida, the Parks Department will wrap them on palm trees around the city. So that's pretty exciting.
Okay, well, because I mean,
So I'll check about the mangroves.
I mean, I have so many, and I'm like always told, you're getting more, and it's I feel guilty leaving them out there, to dry or to get run over or to get cleaned and stuff. So that's I do
What a
make
great idea.
It's just those are the small things that count and make. But Monument Island really does need some help, and I'm glad to hear that you're working with state authorities and state reps or senators into bringing something to that island, because that monument is just so gorgeous, and I would hate to lose the island for that, for the lack of respect for nature and stuff and resiliency. As we close, what do you leave us with? What would you like to see? What would you like to be your legacy here on the beach and for your people?
So I want to make sure that our resiliency work has roots and is in place and absolutely is moving forward. I'm also a huge supporter of the arts, and I personally donate. I've been supportive of anything that comes to the City Commission. We have so many jewels across our city, whether it's the Colony Theater, the New World Center, the Bass Museum, partnerships with Wolfsonian FIU and the Jewish Museum and many others, is to make sure that we preserve and continue to have them activated and encourage attendance by our residents and visitors. I also want to make sure that we strike a balance. We do have 22,000 hotel rooms across our city. My background is in tourism. I'm on the board of the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau, and just to ensure that we strike a balance between our tourists and our residents. Tourism is our economic engine in the city of Miami Beach, so it is necessary. Those resort taxes are what helps keep our millage rates down. So bringing in the right conventions and activations and keeping those hotel rooms full are going to go a long way in our city. So making sure that we have a beautiful, resilient, culture-filled city. That's my goal.
Awesome. One of the things that I do promote is Rainbow Springs. Rainbow Springs is a program that the Greater Convention Visitors Bureau has for the LGBT community tourism being brought to Miami. And last year they brought over 14,000 heads to beds. The amount of revenue that the LGBT community is doing tourism is incredible. We just finished with Pride. Our purchasing power is almost $15 billion locally. Overall in the United States, it's 17. So I'm pushing very much the LGBT community to come and work with us in tourism. So I'm glad to hear that tourism is on your radar. I know it's always been, because that's where you were when I first met you. But I'm glad that it continues to be part and yet continue to be, at the root of your foundation. And
Oh, absolutely. And I'm an ally to the LGBTQ community. I've served on the steering committee with Equality Florida for the past 8 years. I think that LGBT tourism really needs to flourish and continue to be supported in Miami Beach, because it's not always been positive in the state level. So I want to make sure that LGBT tourists know that they are welcome in Miami Beach. We want LGBT tourism here. And you're right, we just came off a fabulous Pride Parade and festival, and I want to continue that.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us, Commissioner. I wish you the best of luck this cycle on your reelection. I also want to thank you for having come and speaking with us today and sharing some of your ideas. And until next time, we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Gabriel.